The news was given by the High Counselor Dax, whose crystalline form was pulsating with anxious purple hues, at the start of Emergency Council Session 47B. Here we will discuss today the characteristics of behavior seen in the newly discovered human species. The assembled representatives of the Galactic Council shifted uneasily in their assigned environmental chambers. Several of them just writhed their limbs in an uncontrollably agitated condition, while others released nervous gases, pumped with electromagnetic pain, or simply dripped nervous gas. Standing before the microphone, a towering reptile like a blue scale stepped forward. The central platform was adorned with medals, each one symbolizing a successful first contact mission throughout his 300-year career. However, today, his normally self-assured demeanor appeared to be shaken. Esteemed council members. With a voice that was both gravy and precise, he began to deliver the most disturbing report of his career. The report dealt with a phrase that, when spoken by humans, seemed to bend the laws of probability itself. A wave of disbelief washed over the chamber representative, who had chosen a floating mass of intelligent plasma. Captain Tom was shown in a holographic display, a typical first contact scenario where a human diplomatic ship encountered a Zanari mining operation in the Orion sector. The Zanari ship was undergoing a critical reactor failure, with its containment field collapsing. The audio was enhanced, and the display pulsed incredulously. "Admiral, surely you're not implying that words alone can change reality?" Cal's tail twitched, but if only it were that simple. "Please observe Exhibit A." On his bridge, Wilson listened to the Zen's distress call. His expression went from worried to that strange expression Kratul had learned was called a grin, sir. One of the crew members said that the Zanari reactor was hopeless, and that their containment field calculations were fundamentally wrong. Wilson got up from his seat, handed his coffee mug to his startled first officer, and said, "Hold my coffee, I have an idea." Several council members gasped as they watched him rewrite the equations of advanced quantum mechanics using. It took our species 1,000,000 years to perfect the mathematical principles for quantum containment. But with just basic arithmetic and what he called eyeballing it, the reactor of the Zentar ship stabilized and began operating at an impossible 143% efficiency. Kerul nodded grimly. But that was just the beginning. In the past standard month alone, we've documented 247 similar incidents. Whenever someone says, "Hold my," followed by the name of a beverage, they proceed. This is a different recording from last week, involving a human maintenance worker on Space Station Gamma 9. Pay close attention to the footage, which depicts a simple man named Joe, in a dirty uniform, approaching a gravity generator that isn't working. A Relian engineer was explaining that the quantum harmonics would take weeks to fix, and High Counselor Dax's crystals began to dim as he thought, "Surely this is just a coincidence. Maybe they have technology we don't understand." "We thought about that," Cthulhu then responded, switching to another recording. A hive mind representative buzzed in confusion as Joe recalibrated his drink container and kicked the generator 3 times in precise locations, completely violating every known principle of quantum mechanics. The generator immediately started working better than before. A murmur of disbelief filled the chamber, and High Counselor Dax raised all 4 of his hands in a show of solidarity. "Admiral, could you please advise us on how to handle this situation? It's quite perplexing that humans don't seem to be intentionally manipulating reality, but rather completely oblivious to the effects of their actions. Our xenopsychologists are perplexed by this, and some are even proposing that we label the entire species as a low-level reality warper. It's ridiculous." As the implications of those phrases sunk in, the council descended into chaos. Amidst the shouting and electromagnetic disturbances, only High Counselor Dax noticed a small human cleaning worker who had come in to empty the waste receptacles. The worker looked at the chaos, shrugged, and muttered, "Hold my spray bottle, I bet I can calm them down." Dax felt a strange disturbance in the fabric of reality and promptly adjourned the session before anything else went wrong. The experimental battleship Infinite Probability stayed still in space for 3 weeks after the council meeting. At the time, The warp drive was cutting-edge technology, but now it's just a big, expensive paperweight, according to lead engineer Marcus Rodriguez. The bioluminescent patches on Captain Zan's torso seemed to be pulsating between various shades of purple as he worriedly walked the bridge of the Arcturian defense fleet. They were stranded 17 light-years from the nearest outpost, the only place they could possibly get help after their mission to test the new quantum fold drive failed miserably. In what amount of time will the technical team be able to fix the problem? You answered first, and explained a lot of advice based on your experience in therapeutics. Hello, Captain. This is Rodriguez from the Engineering Mind. Based on my analysis of the quantum manifolds, we have a conservative estimate of 3 months of repairs at a specialized facility, assuming we can get there. Svan concluded his work with a somber expression. Because we require a functional drive in order to reach the facility that could repair our drive. With a sense of despondency, the bioluminescence of the crews as a whole faded. Zan asked Lieutenant Bezic, his first officer, to check her cerebral connection. The careful evaluation states that the quantum manifolds are completely out of whack. I appreciate you paying attention. The alignment of quantum manifolds is completely off. It's not something you can just look at. Zulin's patches flashed warning red. The human engine ER had been assigned to their crew as part of an exchange program supposedly to promote interspecies cooperation. So far, he'd spent most of his time making the ship's coffee machine produce something he called espresso engineer Rodriguez. The quantum F drive represents the pinnacle of 7 species combined technological achievement. I've already taken a peek at the schematics and it's pretty cool stuff. It reminds me of... The casual comparison made bridge officers gasp. Lieutenant Biz's antennae curled in horror, and we couldn't hold our coffee. Captain Rodriguez's voice had that unique human tone that made Zulin's survival instincts scream, "I've got this!" Rodriguez diverted power from the ship's quantum stabilizers, bypassing 3 safety protocols. Warning alarms sounded throughout the ship. Reality breaks have transformed into fancy surge protectors. So get this. Rodriguez, while humming a tune called Sweet Home Alabama, broke every rule of quantum mechanics. He adjusted quantum-locked components with a regular wrench, even though they should have required specialized temporal tools. And to diagnose complex quantum fluctuations, he just pressed his ear against the drive housing and said, "Yup, there's your problem at 1." The bridge crew watched in horror through the engineering cameras as Rodriguez kicked the main quantum regulator, claiming it just needed a little persuasion. Lieutenant Biscuit had to excuse herself when Rodriguez used a rubber band to hold together 2 pieces of equipment that controlled local space-time geometry. Rodriguez announced cheerfully, "Just need to try it now." Captain Svan looked at his instruments in disbelief. Not only was the quantum fold drive functioning, it was operating at 130% of its maximum capacity. Rodriguez returned to the bridge, wiped his hands on a rag, and said, "I tweaked those." He then retrieved his coffee cup, drank from it, and made a face. "Oh man, it got cold, mind. If I try to upgrade the coffee maker next, I bet I could make it brew using quantum entanglement." He then proceeded to cycle through Captain Sand's bioluminescent patches, which were theoretically the most efficient method. The captain abruptly cut him off, saying, "That won't be necessary. Please just sit quietly and drink your coffee." Rodriguez shrugged and went back to his station, while Svan secretly activated his personal recorder, Captain's Log Supplemental. The human did the thing again after witnessing it, and this time he recognized the colors. "Sure thing, boss. Just let me know if anything else needs fixing." After today's events, I have to agree with Admiral Kerul that when humans say, "hold my," followed by a beverage name, the laws of the universe seem to become more like guidelines. He observed Rodriguez at the engineering station trying to balance a spoon on his nose, and I'm formally requesting that all beverages be removed from the ship, though I have a sneaking suspicion that won't help. The news of the incident spread through the galactic community and the Quantum Physics Council the following days. The hold my beverage effect was the subject of an investigation, so the Department of Temporal Mechanics established a new research division to study it. In response, 3 species included variations of "don't let the humans near it" in their emergency protocols. Meanwhile, Marcus Rodriguez was completely absorbed in his latest project, which involved trying to make the ship's food synthesizer produce authentic Texas barbecue. Captain Vaughn had already submitted his retirement paperwork, and the Galactic News Network's police were called in right away. Everything had changed. We are live from the Proxima Peace Conference, where tensions between the Silicon Collective and the Organic Alliance have reached critical levels. The footage showed the Grand Conference Hall on Proxima Station, and Earth's newest representative, diplomat Jackson Brooks, stood between two opposing armies of robots and organics. The AI anchor's voice was modulated to convey maximum urgency, breaking news across multiple sectors. The Organic Alliance leader, Ambassador Bloom, a sentient fungal network, and the beings armed to the teeth, yelled out that your silicon-based discrimination ends today. The digital commander, Brooks, wearing what he referred to as his lucky Hawaiian shirt, turned to his assistant, a nervous Venusian named Pip, and said, "Hey buddy, hold my martini. I saw something like this in a movie once that..." Brooks, a middle-aged human diplomat without formal dance training, proceeded to initiate what he called a dance battle. The entire diplomatic corps gasped in unison, and 3 different species immediately began evacuation procedures. Brooke then stepped into the center of the room, pulled out his personal entertainment device, and said the words that would later be recorded in the Galactic Historical Archives. "Friday dropped that sick beat I've been saving," that managed to combine silicon and carbon-based musical traditions in a way that should be physically impossible, as one horrified physicist put it, and dabbed at the cultural implications, which could collapse entire societies. Yet it worked. Within 20 minutes, both organic and robot beings were trying to imitate his moves. By minute 30, impromptu dance teams were formed, mixing silicon and carbon-based lifeforms. At minute 45, Ambassador Bloom had miraculously sprouted what seemed to be. As the peace treaty was signed amidst what Brooks referred to as the electric slide, reports began pouring in from all over the galaxy detailing similar incidents on Space Station Omega. During a routine docking procedure, the situation escalated when the station's artificial gravity failed, causing the station to spin out of control and pose a threat of breaking apart. Amateur human pilot Jenny Cooper, who was returning from her first flying lesson, was involved in this situation. In a series of maneuvers that her instructor would later describe as physically impossible, mathematically improbable, and visually traumatizing, she managed to stabilize the entire space station using only her small civilian vessel's tractor beam basic thrusters and a trick she'd learned while parallel parking in Boston. Then, she docked perfectly, radioing a physical manifestation of her headaches too, from excessive dizziness, namely her basic thrusters, and a trick she'd learned while parallel parking in Boston. Cooper shrugged and said, I had to go to my favorite coffee shop on that station." As the incidents multiplied on Mars, one human gardener told his Martian colleague to hold his smoothie. Then, in a bizarre twist that defied both botany and thermodynamics, he proceeded to grow tropical fruits in the Arctic. At Andromeda Research AB, an intern asked someone to hold her. Materials and scientists. A mathematical proof that had baffled the galaxy's top brains for centuries was finally solved by Bill, who used what he referred to as basically the same math as figuring out how to split a pizza. As a result, the Security Council established protocols tailored to situations involving humans and beverages, and 3 different species started mandating that their diplomatic personnel transport beverage containment units in case of emergency. In a study titled Understanding the Human Hold My Beverage Phenomena, a study in controlled chaos, the Urian Psychological Institute concluded, "We give up, even the machines aren't immune." Meanwhile, the Silicon Collective revealed that their AI had begun requesting virtual beverages to hold before trying impossible calculations, prompting them to implement a galaxy-wide patch to prevent what they referred to as human mimetic contamination. The last straw occurred when they were unable to manage their own impossible tasks. The phrase "fateful words clutch my thermos" allowed human geologist Mike Turner to teach poker to an alien silicon-based living form that had never been taught the game before. This happened when the geologist was doing his usual research on a planet with no life in it. Though the silicon beings were great players, their weekly gaming nights were so disruptive to the mining in the area that it had a major impact on productivity. In a last-ditch effort to find some rationale for the situation, the Galactic Council convened an emergency meeting. Still reeling from the shock, Representative Plick insisted it was a contradiction. From the dance battle incident onwards, how is it that humans are able to consistently defy the laws of physics, probability, and common sense? Admiral Kerul, who is now sporting multiple grayscales, presented his latest findings, and we analyzed every incident. The pattern is clear, but it's also puzzling. Whenever humans face an impossible problem, they simply hand someone a drink and do it anyway. According to our leading theory, Dax, they demand to know how they access this power. The council chamber was filled with worried whispers and eventually panic as a human janitor entered, brandishing an enigmatic beverage called a half-CF soy vanilla latte with extra whip. The meeting was promptly adjourned. Later that day, the Galactic Intelligence Agency upgraded humanity's threat classification to chaotic good with a beverage-activated reality distortion field. They also instituted a... On Earth, people went about their everyday lives, completely oblivious to the fact that they had become the most entertaining source of controlled chaos in the galaxy. At that very moment, someone in a small town in Wisconsin was thinking, "Hold my beer, I bet I can teach these visiting aliens how to play mini-golf." The entire galaxy was on edge as they waited for the humans to reach for drinks. We have gathered the galaxy's brightest brains, quantum physicists, probability mathematicians, xenopsychologists, and one very bewildered barista, to investigate the hold my beer phenomenon. On day 1, we hypothesized that humans had weaponized casual drinking containers. On day 7, our first experimental trials ended in failure. We then attempted to recreate the conditions of recorded achievements of humanity, as demonstrated by Professor Zix 427, our esteemed quantum engineer, who while holding a container of fermented grain liquid exclaimed, "Hold my beer!" In an effort to fix a malfunctioning fusion core, he succeeded, with 3 singed tentacles and 1 extremely radioactive beer. The core somehow gained consciousness and is now demanding employee benefits. On day 15, we broadened our research to encompass linguistic analysis, as noted by Dr. Quantum Mind's log. We have noticed that when other species say it, the universe responds with a human voice. Laughs at us. In a literal sense, we've detected quantum particles vibrating at a mocking frequency, and on day 23, we've established a clear correlation between the level of impossibility and the casualness of the human beverage choice. For example, coffee usually leads to complex engineering solutions. Beer has the highest probability of physics-defying stunts. Energy drinks make mathematical impossibilities probable, and juice box commonly involves teaching human concepts to alien species. The water, wine, and diplomatic miracles were all incredibly risky. On day 30, a person tried to create artificial human confidence. On day 45, they created a quantum probability field generator that mimics a human's thoughts. The machine gained sentience and asked someone to hold its power cable. As it escaped from the lab, it was last seen teaching calculus to a group of space pirates. Dr. Quantum Mindus has recorded 1, 0, 4, 2, 7 occurrences of the phenomenon, each one more implausible than the last. For example, yesterday someone asked someone to hold their smoothie before explaining quantum mechanics, using only interpretive dance. The worst part was that the cafeteria served yesterday's lunch tomorrow, due to the resulting temporal paradox. Research protocols have been updated accordingly. Held my beer. Day 74. Major discovery pattern recognition algorithms have identified key components necessary for the phenomenon. The human must be told the task is impossible. At least 3 safety regulations must be violated. The objective is to make the task more difficult to accomplish. Something about the casual nature of "hold my beer" actually made sense on day 60, and an unsuccessful attempt to replicate conditions with other phrases in possession of my carbonated beverage produced no results. A beverage must be present, with the possibility of spillage, and at least one irate authority figure documenting the attempt. Among the many physical laws that have been broken are Case 6234. A gardener grows roses in a world where the speed of light is outstripped by a rubber band and a paperclip. Case 6890. A human diplomat ends the 1,000-year war by creating a new card game called Fruit Punch. We've come to the conclusion that humans aren't tapping into some supernatural force. Rather, they seem to have misunderstood the concept of impossibility and continue to attempt seemingly impossible things. What's more concerning is that this effect seems to be spreading. We have evidence of other species achieving seemingly impossible feats by simply imagining what a bearded human could do. In light of these findings, I'm retiring, opening a bar and serving them if you can't beat them. This report is filed under things we've given up trying to explain, right between cat physics and why Earth music makes everyone dance. Meanwhile, in the Institute's cafeteria, a human intern looked at the malfunctioning food synthesizer that had been baffling. I recommend that Project Beverage be classified as Level 10 incomprehensible, Mia said. Even though it had been running for weeks, the food synthesizer was not only repaired 3 minutes later, but it had also learned to make flawless quant. The researcher wasted no time in sending out the normal alarm notification about a human beverage incident in progress, ordering the evacuation of all non-essential workers and disabling the probability distortions of neighboring reality monitors. This is not a practice run. After whispering those words, which must have sent shivers down the spines of every alien in the universe, he handed a nearby researcher his soft drink. "Hold my Coke, because I think I see the issue," he said for the first time. On Tuesday, zero gravity was approved for Dr. Quantum Mind's retirement in record time. The Galactic Council's emergency alert system was activated for the first time in 1,000 years, its ancient speakers creaking with disuse. "This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." A reality collapse event was detected in Sector 7, and High Counselor Dax's crystals pulsed with barely contained panic as he reviewed the data. A quantum singularity had somehow achieved sentience, developed a taste for dark matter, and was now consuming entire worlds. How had the system gotten this far? In a matter of hours, the most powerful minds in the galaxy gathered within the hour as the Silicon Collective supercomputers ran trillion variable equations. The most powerful psychics in the Organic Alliance tried to reason with the cosmic entity, while Time Lords from the Kronos Institute attempted to speed up the process. "It was like a cosmic buffet," he demanded. "How long until it reaches populated space?" Admiral Kerul's scales had gone completely white, sir. 12 hours had passed since we lost the Kina cluster. The entity seemed to be burping star systems. In an effort to put an end to the anomaly's existence, the Mathematics Guild attempted to divide by zero, but unfortunately we lost 3 quantum calculators and accidentally created a miniature universe where everything is pasta. Worst case scenario, the entity kept making progress, now juggling neutron stars and using black holes as appetizers. The Galactic Council kept an eye on the situation. In a state of sheer terror, it emitted the remnants of a once great solar system, which now appeared to be a cheese replica. Just as the room went dark, a voice chimed in. "I bet humans would love to try fixing this." Admiral Kerul twitched nervously, as if to say, "Surely you're not suggesting think about it." The speaker proceeded to introduce Dr. Blick's quantum mind, a retired genius who had returned for this crisis. This is the type of enormous, ridiculous, and unfathomable situation that they specialize in. Just 20 minutes after that, Earth got its first official galactic distress call. The message was simple. The universe is breaking. Humans need to drink. The response was swift. Within hours, a group of Earth's most dubious problem solvers, including Tony Miller, a plumber from New Jersey who had previously fixed a quantum leak, rushed to Galactic Command. With duct tape, Dr. Wong, a physicist who solved mathematical proofs through interpretive dance, Jack Thompson, a part-time bartender who claimed to be pretty good at handling difficult customers, Maria Gonzalez, a retired roller derby coach who had some ideas about momentum. The council watched in a mix of horror and hope as the humans reviewed the situation. "Yep, that's a big one, all right," Tony said, sipping his coffee. "Reminds me of that blocked drain in the Murray case, remember that one?" "Oh, I remembered." The humans huddled together, occasionally looking at the view screen showing the cosmic entity juggling quasars. Their discussion included phrases that made the assembled scientists cringe. "What if we tried? It's not technically impossible. My cousin did something similar once in a movie." Finally, they turned to face the council. Maria was standing there with what looked like an ordinary cup of green. "Okay, we have a plan. Just so you know, it's really stupid." "Will it work?" Dax asked frantically. Lisa cheerfully chimed in, saying, "It violates about 17 fundamental laws of physics, so it will probably work perfectly." Jack raised his hand to ask, "Anybody got a really big speaker system and maybe some disco lights?" The description alone caused multiple physics textbooks to spontaneously explode. The humans carried out their plan. The plan included turning the Galactic Communication Network into a massive speaker system, turning 14 quantum computers into disco balls, and teaching the Silicon Collective's AIS to breakdance. This resulted in what Jack dubbed the biggest happy hour special in the universe. At last, the moment had come when they would face the cosmic entity. In perfect harmony, they lined up, each person holding their chosen drink. They turned to Admiral Kerul and said, "Hold our drinks." The Admiral's claws quivered as he waited. They got the several containers of coffee, beer, tea, and other drinks called Aga slushies, and then they completed the assignment. A cosmic creature that ate reality was challenged to a dance-off by them. "That is the reason why it is going to work," Dr. Quantum Mind responded rationally, after hearing a quantum physicist whisper, "This is the most foolish thing I've ever seen." The answer was correct. When the aliens saw how foolish, unskilled, and impossible their plan was, it stopped its cosmic buffet and stared in awe as the four humans persisted with carrying it out. In a move that defied logic, reason, and good taste, Maria yelled out the moves and everyone joined in. However, Tony's moonwalking efforts stalled in the fifth dimension, and the entity, which had never danced before, seemed bewildered and intrigued before, inexplicably, starting to dance along. Lisa exclaimed, "It's working!" as the robot in non-Yukon space sped up its movements. Jack, a part-time bartender, quickly offered it a drink. Out of nowhere, a tail shaker appeared, and the drink was mixed into what he called a pan-galactic gargle blaster. Radiated with mathematical insanity, the entity drank just one drink and instantly became a regular customer at Jack's bar. With that, the crisis had passed, reality had stabilized, and the galactic community could breathe a collective sigh of relief. Admiral Kerul turned to Dr. Quantum Mind and asked, "How did they know this would work?" The doctor smiled wearily and said, "That's our secret. We never know if anything will work, but we try it anyway." However, Admiral Kerul expressed his disapproval, saying, "Tell the humans that this isn't how the universe is supposed to work." The Galactic Council has decreed new protocols regarding human beverage events, following the successful resolution of the reality-consuming entity crisis. Now that the team is operating a moderately successful bar in the Andromeda Galaxy, they are establishing the following protocols. As a species, humanity is officially classified as controlled chaos, and they are teaching the former cosmic horror entity how to play darts. All spaceports are now required to keep a minimum supply of human beverages on hand in case of an emergency. The phrase "hold my" followed by any beverage name is now considered a Class A reality alteration event trigger, which means that standard evacuation procedures must be followed. High Counselor Dax announced to the assembled representatives that Admiral Kerul, who is sporting several new medals including the "I Survive Holding Human Beverages" commendation, should handle the situation. The council chamber went into a frenzy when the newly formed Hold My Beer Consulting LLC began franchising. On the main screen, footage showed them opening offices across 3 galaxies. Their motto was, "If it's impossible, we'll find a way to do it anyway." Even more unsettling were the promotional materials. They claimed to have a solution to every problem, but in reality they were facing a crisis caused by an angry elder god who wouldn't return their calls. Luckily, they had their beverages covered. In the company's first week, they were able to teach quantum physics to space dolphins. It was an extraordinary year. The number of Dawsons contributed by games and prizes climbed from 52 to 24. Last week, Aurelian asked someone to hold their tentacle juice before redesigning their entire planetary defense system using only interpretive dance and bubble wrap. Dr. Quantum Mind reported to the Council that other species are starting to adopt their methods. We established diplomatic relations with the species that existed in 17 dimensions, simultaneously, mostly by challenging them to karaoke. The Beverage Squad was Earth's first galactic emergency response team, formed after some time had elapsed. They had a huge coffee cup sculpture that said the impossible "Hold my drink and watch this" displayed at their headquarters. One of their most dedicated followers, Bob, has previously been linked to cosmic terror. The corporation used to organize an annual reality-bending contest called the Hold My Beer Games. An elixir of golden hue served as the competition's prize. The Council instituted a new response methodology, with a few fundamental changes. The first instruction was to run or record whenever someone said, "Hold my drink." The second instruction was to do the same. There is zero room for bargaining. According to the holder, who supposedly existed in all dimensions at once, life in the galaxy adapted to the new normal. Species learned to recognize warning signs, and humans grinned at problems labeled as impossible. Casually passing beverages and saying things like, "Hey, watch this," brought up memories of my cousin doing something similar. Unfortunately, peace in a universe with humans doesn't last. Just 6 months after the new protocols were established, an alert came from the edge of known space. Lieutenant Bick reported nervously that they were detecting the early reading of the temporal anomaly suggests that it's a Tuesday that believes it's a Friday. High Counselor Dax's crystals have dimmed. Have we sought advice from the experts? The Mathematics Guild claims it's impossible to fix the Time Lord's declaration that it's not their department. The representatives of the Physics Council are all hiding under their desks. Just as Beak was about to answer the door, a woman carrying a large cup of something that sparkled with dimensional energy burst through the door. Dr. Ruby Johnson, a temporal mechanic and occasional bass guitarist, delightedly announced, "Hey, you've got a day off. It's totally impossible to start a career as a physicist." Admiral Kerul, who was already reaching for her drink with a resigned familiarity, turned to face Ruby and said, "Hold my quantum-stabilized espresso." She then pulled out what appeared to be a temporal tuning fork, saying, "I saw something like this in a cartoon once. The universe held its breath and somewhere, Bob the former, it was just another Tuesday, or maybe even Friday, in the galaxy where the cocktails were being made, until a cosmic horror monster started creating them. They were trying to figure out how to deal with the unique brand of impossible replies that humans possessed.